All right, guys, welcome. Bryan here, and I want to talk to you guys about this concept that is very, very important in how I teach what I teach, whether it's fitness, mindset, overall organization, building your business, your lifestyle, okay? It has to do with this concept, and I even wrote this book called The Flow Formula, okay? So I want to break it down here in terms of your physical wellness, and I want to give you guys 3 exercises that you can do, okay? So the word that I'm going to throw out there is circulation. You already know what circulation is about in essence, and you understand things like cardio, right? You know, you should get out, you should get your heart moving, your circulation moving, your heart pumping, so to speak. And I've talked about some of this stuff, right? Of how it's almost misleading in the sense that we kind of think of it in this very machine-like way, this very compartmentalized way. But I want to give you a different way to think about your circulation and understanding flow. Okay, so flow in your body is the same metaphor as how it works out there in life, and that's one of the reasons I created this brand, this channel, this particular orientation of information, how I'm presenting it, how I'm bringing it to you guys. Over here we're talking about energy, vitality, that essence, that life force, that chi, however you want to think of it, however you want to cultivate it. Okay, but what it comes down to is in essence, right, literally in essence, is that same circulation, that same flow, because of this law of thermodynamics. You could say the law of thermodynamics. Well, there's a few of them, but the main one I want to throw out right now is understanding that energy is just a transference, and it's not something that comes in and out of existence. It is the palette of this world, right? It can't be created or destroyed. So it is the canvas, so to speak, that everything else comes in and out of existence through. Okay. And we could say, there's a counter space to that infinite backdrop of energy itself. And this is what really creates the foundation of life. It's that yin and that yang. So if we can understand some simple concepts, you don't have to get so deep into the esoteric side to actually be able to apply it to your life. So that's what I want to give you guys. How do you apply it to your life? Okay. Well, as far as understanding keeping your body healthy, it's the same concept. Okay. You need to keep energy transferring in your day-to-day life. So think about it like this. Most people wake up, move around a little bit, they get themselves up and going, but then they sit down for like 4, 6, 8 hours at a time with maybe 1 or 2 breaks, maybe even longer, right? People these days are just sitting, or they're on their phone even while they're kind of like doing some stuff. They're very passive, they're very checked out, they're not as present in the moment, they're not experiencing life on that level. So what that does is it restricts the ability for energy to branch out and actually flow into space itself, into deeper spaces within your life, right? So that means less opportunities because now there's not as much movement. And then also in your body, you're not moving that circulation into your body as much as you could be, all right? Your body's going to choose the path of least resistance. So if you don't force it, and if you don't put that stress on it, right, so to speak, like life naturally puts stress upon your body, especially in this more ancient context. Well, if you don't create that in the modern day and you're just sitting there, well, then that's the result, is that you're not going to have you're going to have an imbalance. You're not going to have a nice spread of energy. It's all going to be going just to cover its main expenses, and that's it. It's like, well, this is pretty much what I'm used to doing, used to like the body doing, being your body, right? So, okay, I only need to source this much energy. I don't need to push out any other energy. I don't need to push out any further circulation into the muscles. I don't need to move the lymphatic fluid because the individual, right, the avatar, the user is not moving it that much. So this is all that's really required. Well, that's a simple fix. You just start moving the avatar more, and then guess what? The body goes, oh, I have to push circulation, oxygen, nutrients, minerals, the building blocks of life out into the human, into the flesh, into the crystallization of this light energy experience that you're having, consciousness, okay? Once that crystallizes, now you can see it manifest in real time. And I always talk about how that takes time to go from point A to point B. So essentially, guys, that's what the workout timeline can teach us. That's what periodization, discipline, consistency, it all shows us how that mechanism actually works in the physical world. You can do the same thing. Okay, this is something I had to learn the hard way. You know, the physical side came early. To me, I was an athlete. I had that natural aspect of athleticism, all that good stuff. That came easy, that came early, but it was the other stuff, figuring out how to apply that to my actual reality in life. And, you know, obviously there's other challenges. We all have our own unique path, but that's in essence what I'm also helping you guys with now. So especially if you're younger, right? Learn from my own mistakes. Learn now how to balance that out, not only physically, but mentally, spiritually in your own life, so that you keep that energy moving and it don't allow it to get stagnant. You know, you basically allow the opportunities to come to you. You also allow yourself to take advantage of those opportunities, and you learn how to step up and act and take that action, because life is not about sitting back, right? Life is an on the spot thing. It is, you know, improv, live and direct. You're on stage. Everybody's watching you. Truman Show, let's go. Can you get up? Can you spit that freestyle? Can you drop that verse? Can you give that speech? Can you share, in essence, the story of who you are, of your life, of the things you've learned and experienced? Have you created a structure around that that you can now return to someone, so that very quickly they can take something from that structure and say, oh yeah, I can apply that to my life. That makes sense. You know, if I do free up these things, this area, this, you know, fundamental flow, whether it's the flow of finances, it's the flow of, you know, healthy emotions, allowing yourself to be able to share, you know, so that you stay in a balanced, even keeled place within yourself, your nervous system, right? Or, you know, just being able to process life so that you're not always in this fight or flight, like focusing on the dangers, right? Your brain is programmed to see threats in your environment. But if you do not take a moment to step back, if you do not take a moment to breathe, then that's all you're ever going to see, right? You're not going to see the opportunity. So in a sense, that is the balance that we're talking about, right? And, you know, right now we live in a time, I've talked about this, how getting up, taking action, there's so much to experience. We have so much in the modern world, right? It's kind of, it's trending in that sense that people want to experience life. Whereas there was a time where you kind of just, you know, you kind of just lived life. You had chores, you had things you had to do, but, you know, it's pretty rare that you got to really even have any semblance of an opportunity to do much other than that. Just wake up, you know, take care of the chores, you know, take care of essentially the homestead, whatever it is, you know, wherever you lived, you had work within that context of your property, your surroundings, your environment, your domicile, your, you know, your world, your life, your family, so to speak. And that was really where a lot of the energy exchanges were. Okay. But now we have this modern world. We're constantly exchanging energy with the world. We have, you know, a phone in our pocket 24/7, you know, trying to draw us in all these alternate worlds. And I talk about that in another video I recently released, where I'm about to, where it's, you know, talking about this cognitive overload, how much information, because we have the world in front of us where we can actually be present and experience nature and sort of the original source code. But then we have this whole other world, right? And not to say, you know, we can't deny modern times, we can't deny reality that we're in, and that technology is not moving in that direction. There's going to be still more and more technology. But yeah, we'll see the bubble burst. We'll see people start to come back to Earth with regards to literally understanding, yeah, technology, it still has to help us remain intact and true to our original nature, because otherwise it's like, it is a form of you know, collective self deletion, in the sense that we're moving ourselves away from our own truth, from our own nature. Okay, so these are themes I've been touching on a lot lately. Think about this energy exchange in terms of your workout. Now, to bring the esoterics back home, all right, I'm going to show you guys 3 exercises you can do. Okay, the first one I like is as a warm up. Do it throughout your day. If you often have, you know, tightness in your core, in your upper body, in your shoulders, in your lower back, one of my favorite exercises. And again, it's a great way to just start your warm up, a couple minutes of cardio, doing a couple of these exercises. You're going to be feeling good, ready to go, ready to put in that effort. Okay, so the first one's just a side to side twist. You're standing tall, you're opening up that spine, you're breathing, you're working on that posture, you're allowing the shoulders to really drive the movement in terms of your thoracic, your upper, mid upper spine, but you're also allowing some movement in that lumbar and even some pivot. I'll step back so you guys can see the pivot. Okay, side to side. Okay, so you're allowing that, but ideally you're keeping the head, you're keeping that cervical spine neutral to create that movement, right? And we have some ones where, you know, or even some variations where you can get the head moving. You guys may have even tried some of those like thoracic type movements. So feel free to add those adjustments, to add those variations. I want you guys first and foremost to really practice opening up that thoracic and keeping a little more control in the upper cervical part of your spine and in the lower lumbar, right? Next one. Okay, now we're going to reach low, okay, and then we're going to swing the arms high. And then this one, we're actually going to squeeze the glutes and really stretch out that extension through the front of our spine, okay, so that we're getting the, you know, not only the twisting, opening of the spine, but now we're getting this forward and backwards extension of the spine that, again, you probably don't get that much of, okay? If anything, we tend to be really, really flexed and rounded a lot of the time. So especially getting that opening in your chest, opening in, you know, the front of, you know, the lumbar and also the thoracic, even up into that upper spine, cervical spine. Very, very key. You just don't want to overdo this. You want to make sure you're not putting pressure onto the lumbar. So it's a neutral long curve. You're reaching tall and extending out as you're getting a slight back bend. So again, squeeze the glutes, keep a little bend in those knees, keep that core tight, and just make sure you don't feel any pressure in that lower back. Okay, limit your range of motion to where you're comfortable. All right, disclaimer: 100%. You know, always consult obviously with medical professionals if you have specific issues, injuries, all the above. Okay, it should be, you know, just obviously something that you do first and foremost. Always kind of check where you're at before you just go and jump into something, obviously, right, guys? But again, these are things that I've done with hundreds of people. Very, very simple warm up. And again, if you just pay attention, start at your own pace, you're gonna be fine. All right. So the second one here, low, reaching up high, head comes up. Okay, low, reaching up high. All right, let me step back for you guys so you can really see it. Come down low, reaching up high. Okay, bend a little bit at the waist, a little bit at the knees. Okay, you're working that hinge position. Okay, so you're getting into a bit of a hinge. You can even stretch out here, that's fine. Okay, but again, go real slow, real safe. Okay, ideally, you're stretching more so through the hamstrings, okay, and the hips. So again, you can add some variation to that, right? It's kind of similar to some yoga type movements or just a basic forward stretch, right? But adding a back bend, so to speak, right? But again, if you guys just take your time with this, you'll find that this is going to bring a lot of circulation into the spine. It's going to help you open up the control in those little vertebrae. So again, this is something I've done since I started training, learned some of these from some great trainers way, way back when, but they're just basically simple exercises. But when done correctly, have a great impact. Okay. All right. So the last one I'm going to give you guys for today, is kind of more one you can use as a cool down. Okay. And so this is going to be our breathing squat, which we've gone over before. So same thing, except we're going to add this circular motion. We're really opening up the shoulders, the chest, the breathing muscles like the diaphragm and the arms. Okay. So coming down, up, wide, back down, okay? All right, so some real simple stuff for you guys to practice. And, you know, the concepts that tie it all together as far as how to think about activating your energy, you know, getting active out there when you're, you know, starting wherever you're at. You've been out of the game for a little bit, or you're just taking those baby steps, because I've, you know, been there myself, whether it's injuries, pain, rehabilitation, or it's just something you've never done before. You've never worked out. You've never taken your body seriously on that level enough to say, hey, how can I challenge myself physically, right? How can I do something a little bit more? Whether it's, you know, add a level to my cardiovascular health, my muscular strength, so on and so forth. Okay, so think about that, guys. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks again for tuning in, and make sure you hit that subscribe.